Hi everyone, I'm Miranda and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by my mum Donna.
Hello.
For a special Teen Reads episode, which we normally do on Fridays, but this week we're doing it today on Sunday in celebration of Stir Up Sunday,
Yes.
which is the day that traditionally in the UK we start to make Christmas puddings for Christmas.
Can't wait.
I can't either. I'm so excited to get started and to make a wish.
Oh, definitely. Can't miss out that one.
No. Would you tell us a bit about the recipe we're using today?
Yes, we're using it from our Delia Smith's Christmas. I think of a book I got when you were about 4 years old. We were living in France. It said everything traditional to me. I still love it for the Christmas pudding, the mincemeat recipes.
Yes.
It's ones I've come back to every year. You must recognise it a lot.
I do. It makes me think of my childhood Christmases. Seeing that book. It's wonderful. And before we got started, I wanted to share a bit of the history of the British plum pudding or Christmas pudding, which I find really fascinating. And this little book called The Book of Christmas by Christopher Wynne has a really interesting little chapter on the Christmas pudding. So I'll just share a few little facts from it, which I found quite fun. It says, like the turkey, the traditional British Christmas pudding was championed by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. They did a lot for Christmas.
Did, Victorians,
They really did. This is one Christmas tradition that was homegrown, however, and did not come from Germany. There is a tale probably concocted by the Victorians in their effort to promote plum pudding for Christmas about how the German-born George I got the name the Pudding King after he demanded traditional English plum pudding for his first English Christmas feast, probably as a way of bonding with his new subjects. Then they go on about the history of how puddings were originally sort of from medieval times, where a pottage and a porridge sort of stirred together. But then he comes to some of the myths and tales surrounding the plum pudding. Says there are many myths and tales surrounding how the plum pudding came to be associated with Christmas. One such tale involves a decree put out by the Roman Catholic Church in the mid-16th century that pudding should be made on the 25th Sunday after Trinity, that it be prepared with 13 ingredients to represent Christ and the 12 apostles, and that every family member stir it in turn from east to west to honour the Magi and their supposed journey in that direction. Indeed, the collect for the 25th Sunday after Trinity in the 16th century Book of Common Prayer reads, "Stir up, we beseech thee, O Lord, the wills of thy faithful people, and that they, plenteously bringing forth the fruit of good works, may of thee be plenteously rewarded through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen." The 25th Sunday after Trinity, which occurs roughly 1 month before Christmas, at the beginning of Advent, became known as Stir Up Sunday, and it was popular with the Victorians. And of course, the Victorian cook Eliza Acton famously had a recipe for Christmas pudding, and that's what helped to popularise this amongst ordinary people. And of course, Charles Dickens popularised a Christmas pudding in A Christmas Carol. There's a famous scene I'll share from this later, but that was how it really took off in Victorian times.
I can imagine
it's still popular now.
I mean, one of the things is a lot of people say they don't like Christmas pudding. I've always not really believed it. I think, they can't have had a nice homemade one. And even your dad is sort of like, I'll eat it, but it's not my favourite thing.
A bit
on the fence. We're not, are we? We
love Christmas pudding.
Yes, we love it with brandy butter, rum sauce, double cream's nice too. It's just an excuse for a really sumptuous pudding right after. I never want it immediately after.
No, because it's quite a stodgy dessert after the enormous Christmas. to be faced with a Christmas pudding is perhaps why it defeats some people, but we like it a bit later in the day.
We do, after a walk, perhaps.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, we're being very organised, preparing it all ready for Christmas.
Yes, and it does smell good in here.
Yes, so tell me what to do first.
Right, so we're going by Delia, a much stained page, I know. So in here you've got your shredded suet, and you can use vegetarian suet. You don't have to use beef if you've got vegetarians or anything. Yeah. And you've got self-raising flour and breadcrumbs. And then mixed spice, nutmeg, cinnamon, and dark brown sugar. So that all goes in the bowl.
Right. Mix that up already, but I'll pop it all in
give it a
together.
Stir
I'll link a recipe for Christmas pudding in the description box down below. So if you get inspired to make your own this year, then you'll have a recipe.
Yeah, I hope you do. It's so fun.
Yes, it is.
And then we're going to add the fruit, the dried fruit. So this is sultanas, raisins, and currants. Now, a lot of people maybe don't like raisins, or they don't like currants, or they don't like sultana. Just mix the amounts that you like of whatever fruit. If you only like raisins, just use raisins or
And it looked like, was there a bit of candied peel?
There's definitely mixed peel in there, yes. And I do like that. But again, if you don't, leave it out. It's you can always adjust as you go. So it just looks luscious the minute you start adding in the fruit.
Oh, it does. It is.
Love the look of that.
Feast of plenty for sure.
Yes, it is. It's how appropriate this.
Yes.
And then you're going to add your almonds, which are sliced down. She does skinned and chopped. I just buy the flaked ones, so
nice and easy.
Nice and easy.
That. I like almonds.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. That goes in too.
I suppose I should be stirring from east to west.
Not until you're ready to do the cooking. You need to worry about that. And then after those have been mixed in, we're going to add a cooking apple that I've cored and taken the skin off and chopped all up. Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely.
Goes in.
This is just a cooking apple.
Yes, it is. Nothing fancy. And I just find, we use our pudding bowls all through the year.
Yes, that's
just
true.
to have, around. But
I think because it will just be the two of us this Christmas, we're probably just going to make a medium-sized pudding.
I think so.
And maybe some little ones
for friends who are on their own.
Yes.
I think it's a nice thing to give. And
yes, it's a nice present to give as well.
It is. And then after that, we need the zest of the orange and the lemon.
Oh, yes.
It goes in.
Got all ready as well.
Yeah.
It's lovely when we do it together and we're each other's sous chef.
Yes, it is. She washes up usually after, and I'm usually the one who sort of gets things ready while you're setting up.
Yes.
Yeah. It's lovely.
Okay.
That smells good.
It does smell really good.
And then after that, you're going to add in the eggs, which are already 2 eggs that we've already whisked. Yeah. A quick whisk.
And a reason you make the pudding so far in advance is because it does get steeped in alcohol, doesn't it?
The alcohol is going to come in, and also it gets steamed tomorrow.
Yes.
And then it gets put away to be steamed on Christmas Day, or wherever you want it.
So we're not going to show you the steaming part of this because it would be quite boring. Really, 8 hours of steaming. There's not a lot to show with that, is there?
I think if we're going to do a small one this year too, the advantage of small ones is they don't take such long to probably 3 to 4 hours.
Oh, that's better.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You used to make such big ones.
I did.
We'd have huge Christmas parties, even though we were a small family, just the 3 of us, because I'm an only child. We had a real tradition where you'd invite people who didn't have family around, and they'd come. We'd have family visiting, and we'd end up with a really big table often on Christmas Day.
And I never minded leftovers, as most cooks will say, because it meant less cooking the next day.
Okay.
So now we're adding in the alcohol. So there's rum, which I like in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this is a mixture now. It's stout and barley wine, which I couldn't find. So I did speak to the man in the wine shop, and he said to me, use a Belgian barley beer.
Ah, okay.
And now from this point on, this is where you're going to be the first to stir. You're the youngest. You've got to make a wish.
Okay.
From east, from where the Magi started, and to the west.
To the west.
Yeah. So east, I think, must be there. So you need to start over here. And you're going to go around anyway, aren't you? There we go. Make a wish.
Okay. And you can't say what your wish is, or it won't come true.
Definitely not. And I'm going to do one too.
Yes.
Okay. Looks delicious.
It really does. It smells amazing, the alcohol. Really brings it all out.
You want it to sort of does. You want it to fall off the spoon. This looks perfect to me.
It's not much stirring then.
No.
It's very easy. This is the thing.
And then we're going to leave it covered. We've got the little tea cloth, but we can also use we can use a bit of plastic too later.
Yes.
But we'll just leave it overnight.
Clean tea towel.
Yeah.
Worse than maybe with plastic. I'll pop this on top for now.
I think probably we'll use this size pudding bowl for us.
Yes.
And then maybe 2 or 3, however many we can get, of the little ones to give away.
Yes,
so
that would be lovely. So this is going to rest overnight, soak up all that alcohol, and then we'll be steaming tomorrow.
Yeah.
But now we're going to enjoy a cup of tea, sit down, and we're going to share some of our favourite Christmas pudding related readings.
I can't wait to hear
with
yours.
You all. I can't wait to hear yours
Okay.
too. So see you in a minute.
Bye.
And we're back. We've got the fire going. Our tea is made.
It is.
And we're feeling thoroughly cosy, aren't we?
We really are. It's perfect. It's the perfect Sunday.
It really is. Lovely. It's actually sunny today, which is nice too. It's a beautiful day.
It's crisp.
Yeah,
it's crisp.
It's cold.
Yeah.
Winter is coming.
Yeah.
And it's smelling delicious in here.
It is.
And it's all thoroughly lovely. I'm also excited about these, which my mum made. Let me show you. Hopefully you can see those. Would you tell them what they are?
Yes, they're quince pastels. So they're fruit pastels that I use to make plum. Try one.
Yeah.
I used to make quince paste, and I've let it solidify and left it for a while, and now I've rolled them in sugar. I'm going to try them. And this is because when you were little in France, in Thoiry, they had at that point a bakery that actually had sort of a chocolatier in there. But every Christmas around this time, in would come the calisson, and in would come these lovely fruit pastels, black currant and different types, and quince. So I thought, I'll have a go at trying to make it, because this year I haven't been able to find calissons, which I know for you it's Christmas, I've got to look harder. But let's see how these are anyway.
Oh, yes.
They'll be nice. Wow.
Wow.
It's like a
burst of flavour. It is. So fruity.
Oh, it's so good.
It tastes like summer.
It really does, doesn't it? It's like over.
I know, it's the fruit is just. I'm going to have another one.
Go on. I want to.
These are so good. I'll try and find a recipe and link below if you want to check them out. It was a very lengthy process, wasn't it? So
yeah,
it wasn't something we wanted to do with the tea reads, but we couldn't sit down with nothing.
No. Oh, it seemed the right time of year to bring these out and start enjoying them. I think
very successful.
Again.
It took you hours though.
It did. It did take me hours, and I said, "You'll never let me do this again." But they were
so
really good. Well, I'm really good at that because I didn't know. It was an experiment, but they are nice. But I love this type of thing. This time of year, you make quite nice dishes and often stews and stuff. But to have a lovely chocolate or a lovely calisson or a fruit,
so nice
fruit
with coffee after a dinner.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It would be really nice.
Really special.
Yeah.
Well, let's get on with our readings. We've each chosen some Christmas pudding inspired readings.
We have. And
of course I had to start with the most famous example, which is from A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And this is a very famous scene in the book.
Well loved, yeah.
Well loved, but I had to share it today. Hello, a great deal of steam. The pudding was out of the copper. A smell like washing day. That was the cloth. A smell like an eating house and a pastry cook's next door to each other, with a laundress's next door to that. That was the pudding. In half a minute, Mrs. Cratchit entered, flushed but smiling proudly, with the pudding like a speckled cannonball, so hard and firm, blazing in half a quartern of ignited brandy, and bedight with Christmas holly stuck into the top. Oh, a wonderful pudding.
That is wonderful. I love that description. And I always remember lighting our Christmas pudding with Uncle Reg one year, and him saying, "Oh, what brandy did you use?" And I said, "Oh, I used that Spanish stuff." And it was like, I think it's about nearly £100. I have no idea. It was like, wow. So perhaps don't make that mistake. Perhaps not quite such a good
Not
brandy.
the best brandy. Oh, it's a good job Uncle Reg was very forgiving.
He was. He loved the Christmas pudding. So I think that tipped it in our favour.
But it tasted extra good that year.
Well, actually, I do think it makes a difference. You may as well use the best if you can, but perhaps that isn't right with brandy. I don't know. You set it on fire anyway, don't you?
You do.
Right.
Well, I wanted to also read a couple more humorous examples of puddings perhaps not always working out quite right. So one is from Christmas Days by Jeanette Winterson. And Jeanette Winterson knew the writer Ruth Rendell and would often spend Christmas with her.
That's lovely, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And she shares a recipe for Ruth Rendell's red cabbage in the book, which I think is fantastic. I love this little collection of anecdotes and stories that are very Christmassy. But they would always have a Christmas pudding together, and it was always a bit of a production, and I wanted to share this part. The pudding, always made by a friend of hers, so that's a friend of Ruth Rendell's, in the House of Lords, was the size of a cannonball and just as heavy. It was a lethal weapon disguised as dessert. Ruth let it boil for hours, wrapped in a rag in a double pan, the old-fashioned way. As her kitchen ventilation wasn't that great, we spent the later part of the evening in a Hitchcock steam that smelled of washing. Even the cat coughed. When the pudding was thought to be ready, and Ruth, the most precise of persons, never used a timer, she set about making custard. While this was happening, she'd sing a bit, usually country and western, or sometimes Handel. She was a big Handel fan. Sometimes it was Jolene, melodied with hits from the Messiah. The custard was proper homemade with milk and eggs. The effort had to be encouraged by opening a further bottle of champagne, which only a half. Then the pudding was tipped onto its dish, covered in brandy by me, and set alight by Ruth. Ruth always said that she was too full to eat any, and then munched her way through exactly one half.
That is perfect.
Isn't that
Do
funny?
you think we should have a half bottle of champagne to just
have
have with
yes,
our
I agree.
this year?
Ease
Let's
the
make it
effort along.
Let's make it a new tradition.
I think that's a very good tradition, and hopefully won't smell too much like a laundress or a washing line. Because we like to
use muslin a lot to,
Yes, I know. But
to
I thought
boil them. Yes.
how funny that was.
Yeah.
But yes, and then finally I wanted to share an extract from this beautiful anthology that I've already shown off on my channel. And it's round the Christmas fire, festive stories, which seems very appropriate to read by our fireplace. And I love this anthology.
It's one of the best, don't
It
you?
is. I think it's probably one of my very, very favourites. And I wanted to share this little story. It's A Conscious Pudding from The New Treasure Seekers by E. Nesbit. And I'm sure I loved that book when I was little. I mean, I adored E. Nesbit.
was one of your childhood favourites.
Yes.
And she's still wonderful, isn't she?
Oh, she is. And I mean, The
Yeah.
Railway Children, what a Christmas classic that is.
It was so
too.
lovely when they released The Lark a couple of years ago.
Yes, that's a book for adults.
It
by her.
is,
It's
it
a
is.
lovely read.
And I think that's a lovely one too. And so much of what she does is still lovely.
Oh, it is. Anyway, there's a very funny little extract, tinged with sadness, because the children have lost their mother. This is the first Christmas without her.
Okay.
And their father's been called away, and he's instructed their sort of housekeeper / cook to make a plain pudding for the children. And they're horrified by the idea of a plain pudding for Christmas, and they determine to make their own Christmas pudding. But it remains to see how it will turn out. And here's a little bit from preparing the pudding. Chopping suet as fine as possible is much harder than anyone would think, as I said before. So is crumbling bread, especially if your loaf is new, like ours was. When we had done them, the breadcrumbs and the suet were both very large and lumpy, and of a dingy grey colour, something like pale slate pencil. They looked a better colour when we had mixed them with the flour. The girls had washed the currants with brown Windsor soap and the sponge. Some of the currants got inside the sponge and kept coming out in the bath for days afterwards. I see now that this was not quite nice. We cut the candied peel as thin as we wish people would cut our bread and butter. We tried to take the stones out of the raisins, but they were too sticky, so we just divided them up in 7 lots. Then we mixed the other things in the wash hand basin from the spare bedroom that was always spare. We each put in our own lot of raisins and turned it all into a pudding basin and tied it up in one of Alice's pinafores, which was the nearest thing to a proper pudding cloth we could find, at any rate clean. What was left sticking to the wash hand basin did not taste so bad. It's a little bit soapy, Anna said, but perhaps that will boil out, like stains in tablecloths.
Wonderful, isn't
So we
it?
can hope our Christmas pudding at least turns out better than that
I
one.
promise there was no soap anywhere near it, nor bath sponges.
It reminds me of the scene in Friends when Chandler almost washes the cranberries for Thanksgiving when washing up.
It's true though, it used to be such a production.
Oh,
To
yes,
get all
and
the little
stoning the raisins.
stoning
I forgot
them.
people had
And
to
even,
do that.
When I was in the States, I couldn't get suet, and I remember I talked to the butcher, and he gave me the fat from around the kidneys, and I had to sort of dust it in rice flour and grate it, and it was such a production, and I nearly gave up and just used butter, but I didn't. I sort of weathered through it, but it was a real production.
Yes.
One of mine is
Yes.
actually a bit about Elizabeth David's Christmas, this book. She, in one of her books, really gives it a description of when she was living in, I think, an island off Greece.
Oh, yes.
And she was asked to make a Christmas pudding, and that's in spices, salts, and aromatics. And of course, there was none of the ingredients that you would have in bags and those, but of course they had sun-dried currants sitting there and things, but she had to do the drying, she had to do the stoning, she had to do the taking the stalks off things and everything. So she says, at last, after 2 long days in the kitchen, the ingredients were just about ready. To give the pudding a preliminary boiling of 3 or 4 hours, it was necessary to keep constant watch on my charcoal fire, fanning and refueling at frequent intervals for fear the fire should get too low and the water go off the boil. At the end of 2 hours, I transferred the pudding in its basin. I'd borrowed this uniquely English necessity from the British Council's household to a hay box constructed with the help of the villagers expressly for the purpose. Thus it stayed from early afternoon to supper time, when my Christmas party got underway. By the time we reached the moment to extract the pudding from its box, it was scarcely more than tepid. Under the circumstances, that didn't matter in the least. The Greeks dislike and distrust hot food, and the islanders were merely curious to know what the English Christmas pudding was like. I must admit that with all the beautiful ingredients I'd used, it was quite creditable, though I think my village friends were somewhat mystified, as much by the hay box as by the unfamiliar nature of the pudding itself. And she goes on to say, what I'd learned from going through the lengthy business of preparing all the ingredients by hand was some understanding of the tedious jobs the cooks and kitchen maids of the past were obliged to perform. So when I hear people moaning about packet suet and raisins and currants and peel and how much better all these things were in the old days when everything was hand prepared, I wonder if they themselves have ever given a thought to what it was like to shred suet, clean currants, take the stones out of huge sticky raisins, chop tough gummy candied citron and orange peel, pound all the spices in a mortar and sieve them. Myself, although I agree that today's ingredients are not a patch on those I found in Greece, which was after all the original source of most of our dried fruits, I find Christmas plum pudding a pretty awful concoction and have not made one since that epic occasion.
Oh, that's brilliant. But yes, how thankful are we to live in the days of easy convenience, to be honest.
Yes. I don't agree with her summing up of Christmas pudding, but I could understand that was a huge effort.
Yes.
And then this extract I wanted to read, is from another childhood favourite of both of us.
Yes.
It's an old Stratford. You read this when you were young. I read it with
Apple
you.
Bow.
Apple Bow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lovely scene here where the children go in and they stir up the pudding.
Yes.
So let's have a read of that. I shall need you all for a stir Monday. This one coming is stir up Sunday. We were having breakfast at the time. For a moment, Miss Popple was sure the children were going to disgrace her, but Wolfgang remembered the stir up colic, you mean. Mrs. Bottle beamed. That's it. You can't stir your pudding, not before that's been said. So the next Monday evening, they all went to the kitchen to stir. The pudding mixture was not in a kitchen bowl, but in an old-fashioned china washstand basin. It had pink flowers on it. Mrs. Bottle said she kept it special. She had her sleeves rolled up and she was stirring a great mass of rich, dark pudding with a wooden spoon. Youngest first, she said. Take hold of the spoon, Etty, then shut your eyes and wish. Mr. Bottle had come to watch. But don't tell nobody what you wished or you won't get it.
Oh, that's lovely. That's such a lovely scene from that book.
It is. Yeah. I really love that.
Yes.
And then my third and final one, it has to be. Do you remember on Christmas Day, we used to have, actually, I think it was a cassette tape.
Yes.
Of Stanley Holloway.
I do. And I'll try to find a recording of it on YouTube and link it below because I know what you're going to read.
You do.
Him reading this poem, which he wrote. It's just amazing. It's a Christmas classic.
It is.
Do listen to it.
Yes, and we used to have it every Christmas.
Yes.
And I love it. It's called Old Sam's Christmas Pudding. Stanley Holloway wrote it. It was Christmas Day in the trenches in Spain in Peninsular War, and Sam Small were cleaning his musket, a thing as he ne'er done before. They'd had him inspected that morning, and Sam had got into disgrace. For when Sergeant had looked down the barrel, a sparrow flew out in his face. The sergeant reported the matter to Lieutenant Bird then and there. Said Lieutenant, how very disgusting. The Duke must be told of this here. The Duke were upset when he heard. He said, I'm astonished, I am. I must make a most drastic example. There'll be no Christmas pudding for Sam. When Sam were informed of his sentence, surprise rooted him to the spot. 'Twere much worse than he had expected. He thought he'd only be shot. And so he sat cleaning his musket and polishing barrel and butt, whilst the pudding his mother had sent him lay there in the mud at his foot. I won't read the whole thing because Stanley Holloway does it so much better than I can. But I do recommend it. I think you'd love it. And there's a lot of the cannonball comes out here. You noticed?
Yes.
A lot of this comes up to
Cannons as weapons.
Yes. It turns out to be useful. It's one.
It's
The Peninsular War, you could say, wouldn't have been won without it.
And we forgot to mention, but you wanted to
Well
show our, what do you call them?
Well, they're really just
Favours.
little favours, lucky pieces. That
Yes.
you can either put them in greaseproof paper after you've boiled them assiduously, of course, and stick them in the pudding mixture before you steam it.
Yes.
I, being the sort of mother that panics a bit, always thought that somebody might swallow one or it might get stuck in their throat or you know.
Yes.
So I always like keep them until I'm sort of dishing it out and then surreptitiously slip one on the plate into the thing. So
But
you
you
love them. Yes, you love them. But I've collected.
Yes.
I mean, we used to always use silver sixpences. Sadly, because I've given out so many over the years, people always took the silver sixpences. But I've still got left a threepenny bit. And then I got these two, which are very special. They're French ones from our time.
Yes, they're beautiful.
Yeah, it's like I think it's Janice on that one, the head of, you know, the...
But I don't know if I can show them very well on here, but they are beautiful.
And any little things like coins that you can have that are a bit special. Obviously, that's lovely. And you used to get so excited.
Yes, I remember that.
Yes. It would have been very disappointing to any child not to have a coin.
I like how you always made sure the children did get it.
Yes.
Well, anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed today. I'm feeling so Christmassy, ready.
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah, we are ready.
It's American Thanksgiving coming up, which we're going to celebrate.
Yes, definitely. So there'll be a Thanksgiving-inspired tea reads next Friday, which I'm excited about.
That's right. That's right.
So do join us again then, and I'll be back again myself very soon with another Christmas books video, which I hope you'll enjoy. But thank you so much for watching. Do give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, which you can do by clicking on my face that pops up on the screen. But we'll be back again very soon. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.